I've been listening for 2 hours of reports on CNN. I have seen split screens, horrible pictures that any decent human being would be horrified by. I have not heard a single person say what I just said to you now. And I think that that does a disservice to your viewers to not give them the context they need to make these judgments. Hamas is placing missile batteries in schools, in hospitals, in mosques, and there must be outrage by the world at Hamas to end this.
Well said. Israel and Gaza. It's complex, of course, it's nuanced, but many in media seem to have embraced the Palestinian narrative without any reservations at all. To discuss the situation and its coverage is Clifford May, president of the Foundation for Defense of Democracy. He joins us from Washington. I understand there are people on the other side, if you like, and who are passionately in support of Hamas, who will say, oh, we don't get proper coverage. But it seems to me that whenever this is discussed on TV, it's easy to have the terrible moving shots of the children who have lost their lives and the bloodshed, partly because Israel doesn't present its dead in such a way, but it's such a bad, meager way of covering a complex situation.
Yeah, there's another part of that as well, and that is that if you are a journalist in a place like Gaza or a place like Iran, you know that what you write is being read, and you know that at any moment you could be taken away, handcuffed, bag put over your head, and you would have what you've written read to you, and you would learn that that had displeased Hamas, and you'd be in big trouble. You remember about a few years back, Steve Santani of Fox got kidnapped in Gaza. He was forcibly converted to Islam. Every journalist knows about that sort of thing. I was in Israel recently. I went to East Jerusalem. There were riots going on there. I hung out with the journalists. It was very clear. Those who are responsible for those riots, those who are members of the terrorist groups, they know who you are. And over time, they better think you're useful to them.
Yeah. I remember many years ago, it wasn't violence, but the American Colony Hotel, when it was under Palestinian control, and I saw this firsthand, that journalists would stay there at the end. They would go to pay their bill and be told, no, it's been covered by the Palestinian Authority. People need to know that what they think is objective journalism often is the last thing. But there are also journalists who do not feel threatened, who have not been blackmailed, who just believe that the Israelis are the bad guys in all of this.
Well, they do, but you don't find a lot of journalists in the West Bank, some but not a lot, who are asking Palestinians, do you think maybe Hamas has brought this destruction upon you? Do you object to the fact that Hamas officials go on TV and send around memos saying that if a building is going to be under attack, you should stay there and serve as a human shield? The use of women and children as human shields is standard practice for Hamas, and there are very few media outlets that will talk about that in a free fashion. And I think it is dangerous for a journalist in Gaza to talk about that on the air or in the newspapers.
All right, we're going to see a clip now from the CBC. You won't be that familiar with CBC, but its position on Israel is painfully predictable. Let's see that now, please.
But it was at a school in the north that Palestinians were told, go there and you'll be protected. These images shown on Gaza TV all afternoon underline it was a horrific strike. It happened without warning at a United Nations school packed with displaced Palestinians who'd fled the violence. Today, as they were preparing to be moved somewhere deemed safer, say Gazan authorities, an Israeli strike that killed 15 and injured some 200.
Now, Hamas routinely lies. It's been exposed time and time again. The Israelis say there were many warnings. They say that, in fact, some people who were trying to leave were physically attacked by Hamas officials and told not to leave. There's no context. There's no Israeli position or response given in that report, and that's quite typical.
There's any number of problems with that. First, we know that Hamas puts weapons and command and control headquarters in schools, hospitals, and mosques, and they stores them there. Second, we know that very often the Israelis say you need to get out of a school, and again, Hamas says you may not, or they're either encouraged not to go, or they're sometimes prevented from going. We don't know in this instance whether it was an Israeli strike or not. And we also, you're not getting the basic context, which is this, that Hamas has fired more than 1,500 missiles over the past 2 weeks at Israel. It was the Hamas missile strikes that caused Israel to retaliate. Yeah. Israel was in favor of a ceasefire many times, and Hamas refused. And Hamas has been building a network of tunnels meant to infiltrate into Israel, to kill and kidnap. Now, Israel has to defend itself. Everybody agrees to that. But ask these people, what is Israel allowed to do to defend itself? You find out nothing. Hamas targets civilians. Israel takes great pains to spare civilians and gets no credit for it from the major media.
Yeah, and what you're referring to, if people aren't aware of this, if Hamas is firing rockets from southern Gaza, they're not always accurate. They have frequently landed in northern Gaza and killed their own people. We also know that ambulances have been used to take terrorists away in disguise. So that there's far more, but we just don't hear about it very often. Appreciate your time. Thank you very much.
Thank you.